83% of men over 60 are unknowingly destroying their intimate performance through one catastrophic masturbation mistake that seems completely normal, but is slowly killing their ability to perform with a partner. A leading urologist just revealed that this single error is causing more sexual dysfunction in mature men than diabetes, heart disease, and hormonal decline combined. If your intimate performance isn't what it used to be, what I'm about to expose will shock you to your core. The devastating mistake that 80% of mature men make during masturbation isn't about frequency, timing, or moral considerations. It's about a specific technique that's so common and seemingly harmless that most men have no idea they're systematically destroying their ability to perform with a partner while thinking they're maintaining their sexual health. This mistake is what sex therapists and urologists call death grip syndrome, the use of excessive pressure and aggressive techniques during self-stimulation that gradually desensitizes the penis and conditions the nervous system to require levels of stimulation that are impossible to achieve during normal partnered sexual activity. Dr. Michael Stevens from the Institute of Sexual Medicine has studied this phenomenon for over 15 years, tracking thousands of men who complained of declining sexual performance despite having no obvious medical problems. His findings were disturbing. The vast majority of these men could achieve erections and even climax during masturbation, but struggled significantly during partnered sex. The problem develops because men, especially as they age, often increase the intensity of their masturbation techniques in response to decreased sensitivity. Instead of addressing the root cause of reduced sensitivity, they compensate by using more pressure, faster movements, and longer sessions, unknowingly creating a cycle of progressive desensitization. Here's what happens when you use excessive pressure. The delicate nerve endings in your penis become less responsive, requiring increasingly intense stimulation to register pleasure. Meanwhile, your brain learns to associate sexual satisfaction with this artificial level of intensity, making the gentler sensations of partnered sex feel inadequate by comparison. But the damage goes beyond just nerve desensitization. Excessive pressure during masturbation can cause microtrauma to the blood vessels and erectile tissue in your penis. The same tissues that need to fill with blood smoothly and efficiently during an erection become damaged by repeated aggressive handling, leading to reduced circulation and weaker erections over time. Dr. Patricia Rodriguez from the Men's Sexual Health Research Center found that men who used high-pressure masturbation techniques showed measurable reductions in penile sensitivity and blood flow compared to men who used gentler approaches. The differences were significant enough to affect their ability to achieve and maintain erections during partnered sexual activity. The psychological component compounds the physical damage. Men who become conditioned to intense masturbation often develop performance anxiety during partnered sex because they can't achieve the same level of stimulation. This anxiety further interferes with natural arousal processes, creating a vicious cycle of declining performance. What makes this error so devastating is that it's progressive and often irreversible if continued long-term. Each masturbation session, using excessive pressure, causes cumulative damage that builds over months and years. By the time men notice problems with partnered sex, they may have years or decades of harmful conditioning to overcome. The tragedy is that most men have no idea this is happening. They assume that decreased sensitivity and performance issues are just normal parts of aging, never connecting their problems to their masturbation habits. Meanwhile, they continue using techniques that make their problems progressively worse. Dr. Jennifer Kim from the Sexual Dysfunction Research Institute emphasizes that this isn't about masturbation being inherently harmful, it's about technique. Masturbation can actually be beneficial for sexual health when performed correctly, but the aggressive techniques that many mature men use can be profoundly damaging to their sexual function. Understanding this devastating error is the first step toward recognizing whether your own masturbation habits might be contributing to sexual performance issues you've been experiencing. The good news is that with the right information and techniques, much of this damage can be reversed, but only if you stop making the mistake that's causing it. Your masturbation technique is systematically destroying your sexual performance through 3 specific mechanisms that work together to create progressive dysfunction. Understanding exactly how this happens helps explain why partnered sex becomes increasingly difficult even when you maintain the ability to achieve satisfaction through self-stimulation. Mechanism number 1 is neurological desensitization. Every time you use excessive pressure, speed, or duration during masturbation, you're essentially training your nervous system to require abnormally high levels of stimulation to register sexual pleasure. The nerve pathways that should respond to the subtle, varied sensations of partnered sex become overwhelmed and less responsive. Think of it like listening to loud music for years. Eventually, normal conversation volume sounds too quiet. Your penis experiences the same phenomenon with pressure and stimulation intensity. The gentle, moist, variable sensations of partnered sex can't compete with the intense, focused stimulation of aggressive masturbation techniques. Dr. Robert Chen from the Neurological Sexual Response Research Center used specialized nerve conduction studies to measure what happens to penile sensitivity over time in men using different masturbation techniques. His findings were alarming. Men who used high-pressure techniques showed progressive decreases in nerve responsiveness that correlated directly with their reported difficulties during partnered sex. Mechanism number 2 is vascular conditioning. Your penis requires complex blood flow patterns to achieve and maintain erections. Blood must flow in rapidly during arousal, remain trapped in erectile chambers during the erection, and flow out in a controlled manner after climax. Aggressive masturbation techniques disrupt these natural flow patterns. When you use excessive pressure, you're essentially squeezing the blood vessels and erectile chambers in ways that don't occur during natural sexual arousal. Over time, this conditions your erectile tissues to expect these artificial pressure patterns. During partnered sex, when these unnatural pressures aren't present, your erectile response becomes weaker and less reliable. The blood vessels themselves can become damaged by repeated excessive pressure. Dr. Sarah Martinez from the Penile Vascular Health Institute found that men using aggressive masturbation techniques showed microscopic damage to blood vessel walls and reduced elasticity of erectile tissues. This vascular damage contributes to weaker erections and reduced staying power during partnered sexual activity. Mechanism number 3 is psychological conditioning. Your brain learns to associate sexual satisfaction with the specific sensations, timing, and control patterns of your masturbation technique. When these familiar patterns aren't available during partnered sex, your brain may not recognize the experience as adequately arousing, leading to reduced excitement and performance difficulties. This psychological conditioning is particularly problematic because it affects not just physical response, but also mental arousal and emotional satisfaction. Men often report that partnered sex feels less intense or satisfying than masturbation, not because there's something wrong with their partner, but because their brains have been conditioned to expect unrealistic levels of stimulation and control. The speed component is especially damaging. Many men masturbate at speeds that are impossible to maintain during partnered sex. When they try to have sex at normal, sustainable paces, their conditioned nervous system interprets this as insufficient stimulation, leading to loss of arousal or inability to reach climax. Dr. Michael Torres from the Sexual Conditioning Research Institute documented how different masturbation speeds affect sexual response during partnered activity. Men who regularly masturbated at high speeds required significantly more stimulation to maintain arousal during partnered sex, and were much more likely to experience delayed ejaculation or inability to climax with a partner. The duration factor compounds these problems. Extended masturbation sessions, lasting 30 minutes, an hour, or longer, create unrealistic expectations for sexual encounters. The inflammation and tissue fatigue from prolonged stimulation can also temporarily reduce erectile capacity and sensitivity. What makes these mechanisms so insidious is that they work gradually and often invisibly. You might maintain the ability to achieve erections and climax during masturbation, while simultaneously losing the ability to perform well during partnered sex. By the time the connection becomes obvious, months or years of harmful conditioning may need to be reversed. Understanding these mechanisms is crucial because they explain why simply reducing masturbation frequency isn't enough to solve the problem. The techniques and patterns you use are more important than how often you masturbate. Changing your approach can restore healthy sexual function even if you continue regular masturbation. The shocking truth about masturbation after 60 is that it becomes either a powerful tool for maintaining sexual health or a destructive force that accelerates sexual decline. And the difference lies entirely in understanding how your body and sexual response change with age and adapting your techniques accordingly. Most men continue using the same masturbation techniques they developed in their teens and 20s, not realizing that what worked for a young, highly sensitive, hormonally optimized body can be catastrophically damaging for the more delicate sexual systems of a mature man. The techniques that once maintained sexual function now actively destroy it. Dr. Jennifer Thompson from the Mature Male Sexuality Research Institute conducted comprehensive studies on how masturbation affects sexual function in men over 60. Her findings challenged everything the medical establishment believed about sexuality and aging. Men who adapted their masturbation techniques to their changing physiology maintained sexual function comparable to men 20 years younger, while those who continued aggressive techniques experienced rapid decline. Here's the shocking reality. Your penis at 60 is not the same organ it was at 20. The nerve endings are more delicate, the blood vessels are less resilient, the erectile tissues are more susceptible to damage, and your hormonal environment is completely different. Techniques that were harmless or even beneficial in your youth can cause permanent damage in your mature years. The sensitivity changes are particularly dramatic. While young men often need intense stimulation to overcome high arousal thresholds, mature men typically have lower arousal thresholds but require gentler, more sustained stimulation. Using intense techniques designed for youthful physiology on a mature nervous system is like using a hammer when you need a feather touch. But here's what's even more shocking. When men over 60 adapt their masturbation techniques appropriately, they often report better sexual experiences than they had in their younger years. The reduced intensity requirements of mature sexuality, combined with greater emotional sophistication and reduced performance pressure, can create more satisfying sexual experiences than the urgent, intense sexuality of youth. Dr. Michael Chen's research revealed that men who learned age-appropriate masturbation techniques reported increased sexual satisfaction, improved partnered sex performance, and better overall intimate relationships. The key was working with their changing physiology rather than fighting against it. The hormonal reality is equally important. Testosterone levels naturally decline with age, but this doesn't mean sexual function must decline. Lower testosterone can actually benefit sexual experience by reducing the urgent, compulsive aspects of youthful sexuality while maintaining the capacity for deep, satisfying, intimate connection. However, aggressive masturbation techniques can disrupt the delicate hormonal balance that mature men need for optimal sexual function. Excessive stimulation can trigger stress responses that further suppress testosterone and interfere with the subtle hormonal signals that control sexual arousal and satisfaction. The circulation changes with age require completely different approaches to sexual stimulation. While young men can tolerate and even benefit from intense pressure that forces blood into erectile tissues, mature men need gentler techniques that work with their natural circulation patterns rather than overwhelming them. Dr. Patricia Rodriguez's vascular studies showed that men over 60 who used gentle, sustained stimulation techniques maintained better blood flow and erectile function than those who used intense, brief stimulation. The mature cardiovascular system responds better to gradual, sustained arousal than to sudden, intense demands. Perhaps most shocking is the discovery that many sexual problems attributed to aging are actually caused by inappropriate masturbation techniques. Men who modify their approach often experience dramatic improvements in sexual function that their doctors attributed to expensive medications or procedures. The psychological aspects of mature sexuality also require different approaches. While young men often masturbate for physical relief and stress reduction, mature men can use appropriate techniques to enhance emotional well-being, maintain intimate connection with partners, and support overall mental health. The tragic irony is that many men over 60 avoid masturbation entirely because they've been told it's harmful or inappropriate for their age, when in fact, properly performed masturbation could be one of their most powerful tools for maintaining sexual health and intimate satisfaction. Understanding the truth about masturbation after 60 means recognizing that sexual maturity brings both challenges and opportunities. The men who adapt their techniques to their changing bodies often discover that their best sexual years are still ahead of them. The destructive masturbation habits that most mature men practice create a devastating double attack on the two systems most critical for healthy sexual function: circulation and nerve sensitivity. Understanding exactly how this destruction occurs helps explain why sexual performance deteriorates and why changing your technique can reverse much of the damage. The circulation destruction begins with what researchers call vascular compression trauma. When you grip your penis tightly during masturbation, you're not just applying pressure to the surface, you're compressing the complex network of blood vessels that run throughout the erectile tissues. This compression prevents normal blood flow patterns and can cause microscopic damage to vessel walls. Robert Martinez from the Penile Vascular Research Institute used specialized imaging to study blood flow during different masturbation techniques. His findings were disturbing. Men using tight grips showed immediate reductions in blood flow of 60 to 80% during stimulation, and this restricted circulation persisted for hours after the session ended. But the damage isn't just temporary. Repeated compression of blood vessels causes them to lose elasticity and responsiveness. The smooth muscle cells that line blood vessel walls and control dilation become damaged by repeated trauma, leading to progressively weaker circulation even when you're not masturbating. The erectile chambers themselves, the corpora cavernosa that fill with blood to create erections, become scarred and less expandable when subjected to repeated excessive pressure. This scarring, called fibrosis, prevents the chambers from filling completely with blood, resulting in weaker, less sustainable erections. The speed component adds another layer of circulation damage. Rapid masturbation creates turbulent blood flow patterns that disrupt the smooth, laminar flow patterns that healthy circulation requires. This turbulence can damage the delicate endothelial cells that line blood vessels and are crucial for normal erectile function. Dr. Sarah Kim's research showed that men who masturbated at high speeds had significantly more endothelial dysfunction than those who used slower techniques. The endothelial damage affected not just immediate sexual function, but overall cardiovascular health, since these same cells line blood vessels throughout the body. The sensitivity destruction operates through different but equally devastating mechanisms. Your penis contains thousands of specialized nerve endings called mechanoreceptors that detect different types of touch, pressure, vibration, and temperature. These receptors are designed to respond to subtle variations in stimulation, not the overwhelming intensity that aggressive masturbation provides. When you repeatedly expose these delicate nerve endings to excessive pressure and stimulation, they become less responsive through a process called neural adaptation. The nerves essentially shut down their sensitivity to protect themselves from overstimulation, leading to progressively reduced pleasure and responsiveness. The different types of nerve receptors are damaged at different rates. The receptors that detect light touch and subtle pressure variations are often the first to become desensitized, while those that detect intense pressure may remain functional longer. This creates a situation where you can still feel intense stimulation, but lose the ability to appreciate the gentle, varied sensations that make partnered sex pleasurable. Dr. Michael Stevens from the Neurological Sexual Response Institute documented how different masturbation techniques affect nerve function over time. Men using aggressive techniques showed progressive loss of sensitivity that correlated directly with their reported difficulties enjoying partnered sexual activity. The inflammatory response to excessive stimulation compounds both circulation and sensitivity problems. Aggressive masturbation causes tissue inflammation that interferes with both blood flow and nerve function. This inflammation can persist for days after masturbation, creating chronic conditions that prevent normal sexual response. The psychological component amplifies the physical damage. When circulation and sensitivity are compromised, sexual experiences become less satisfying, leading many men to use even more aggressive techniques in an attempt to recapture lost pleasure. This creates a downward spiral where the attempted solutions make the underlying problems worse. Perhaps most concerning is that this damage is often irreversible if continued long-term. While nerve and blood vessel tissues have some capacity for repair and regeneration, years or decades of aggressive handling can cause permanent changes that significantly limit sexual function, regardless of other health interventions. The timing of the damage is also crucial. Many men notice that their masturbation sessions are becoming longer and more intense as they age, not realizing that this intensification is actually a sign of progressive damage. The need for increased stimulation indicates that desensitization is already occurring. Understanding how circulation and sensitivity destruction occurs is essential because it helps explain why changing masturbation techniques can be so much more effective than medications or other treatments that don't address the root cause of the dysfunction. The correct masturbation technique for mature men works by supporting and enhancing your natural sexual response patterns rather than overwhelming them. This approach can actually help restore function that has been damaged by years of inappropriate techniques, while maintaining and even improving your sexual health as you age. The foundation of restorative masturbation is what sex therapists call mindful stimulation, a technique that emphasizes awareness, control, and working with your body's natural responses rather than forcing artificial stimulation patterns. This approach requires a complete shift in mindset from goal-oriented performance to process-oriented experience. Dr. Jennifer Chen from the Sexual Restoration Research Institute developed this technique specifically for men over 60 who had experienced decline in sexual function. Her clinical trials showed that men who learned and consistently applied mindful stimulation techniques experienced significant improvements in both solo and partnered sexual experiences. The pressure component is crucial and completely different from what most men are accustomed to. Instead of using a firm grip, the correct technique requires using only fingertip pressure, approximately the same pressure you would use to test whether a surface is wet. This light touch stimulates nerve endings, without overwhelming them and allows natural circulation patterns to function properly. Many men initially find this light pressure frustratingly inadequate because they've become conditioned to intense stimulation. However, with consistent practice, sensitivity returns and the light touch becomes not just adequate, but more pleasurable than the intense pressure they were using previously. The speed element requires similar retraining. Instead of rapid movements, the restorative technique uses slow, deliberate strokes that allow your nervous system to fully process and respond to each sensation. The optimal speed is approximately 1 stroke per 2 to 3 seconds, much slower than most men are accustomed to. This slower pace serves multiple purposes. It prevents overstimulation of nerve endings, allows natural arousal patterns to develop, gives your circulation system time to respond properly, and helps retrain your brain to appreciate subtle variations in sensation rather than requiring intense stimulation for pleasure. The duration aspect is equally important. Instead of extended sessions that cause tissue fatigue and inflammation, the restorative technique limits sessions to 15 to 20 minutes maximum. This prevents the tissue damage that occurs with prolonged stimulation while allowing adequate time for satisfying experiences. The breathing component is often overlooked, but crucial for restoring healthy sexual function. Most men hold their breath or breathe shallowly during masturbation, which restricts circulation and increases tension. The correct technique requires conscious, deep breathing throughout the experience. The breathing pattern is specific. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, hold for 2 counts, then exhale slowly for 6 counts. This pattern activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for sexual arousal and erectile function, while reducing the stress response that can interfere with healthy sexual. Dr. Michael Rodriguez from the Therapeutic Sexuality Institute found that men who incorporated proper breathing techniques experienced faster recovery of sexual function and better overall results than those who focused only on physical technique modifications. The mental focus component involves shifting attention from visual stimulation or fantasy to physical sensations. This retrains your brain to respond to actual physical arousal rather than artificial mental stimulation, which is crucial for improving partnered sexual experiences. Instead of using pornography or elaborate fantasies, focus entirely on the physical sensations you're experiencing, the temperature, texture, pressure, and rhythm of stimulation. This mindful attention helps restore the mind-body connection that's essential for healthy sexual function. The frequency recommendations are also different from conventional approaches. Instead of daily or multiple daily sessions, the restorative technique should be practiced every other day or 3 times per week maximum. This allows adequate recovery time for tissues and prevents the overstimulation that can interfere with sensitivity restoration. The most important aspect is consistency and patience. Unlike the immediate gratification of aggressive techniques, the restorative approach requires weeks or months of consistent practice to fully restore damaged function. However, most men begin noticing improvements in sensitivity and sexual response within the first few weeks of proper practice. Understanding and implementing this correct technique represents a complete paradigm shift from the destructive approaches that most men use, but it's essential for restoring and maintaining healthy sexual function throughout your mature years. Most men have no idea their masturbation techniques are destroying their sexual function because the damage occurs gradually and the warning signs are subtle or easily dismissed as normal aging. Learning to recognize these critical warning signs can help you identify problems before they become irreversible and guide you toward corrective techniques. Warning sign number 1. You need increasingly intense stimulation to achieve the same level of arousal or satisfaction. If you find yourself gripping harder, stroking faster, or requiring longer sessions to reach climax than you did in the past, this is a clear indication of progressive desensitization that will only get worse without intervention. The correction involves immediately reducing stimulation intensity by at least 50% from what feels normal. It should feel almost frustratingly light at first. If it doesn't feel too gentle, you haven't reduced the intensity enough. Your sensitivity will gradually return over weeks of consistent lighter stimulation. Warning sign number 2. You experience difficulty achieving or maintaining erections during partnered sex, but have no problems during masturbation. This disconnect indicates that your body has become conditioned to the specific stimulation patterns of your masturbation technique and can no longer respond adequately to the different sensations of partnered sex. The correction requires temporarily reducing masturbation frequency while focusing on retraining your sexual response to appreciate varied, subtle stimulation. Some men benefit from taking a complete break from masturbation for 2 to 4 weeks to allow their nervous systems to reset and regain sensitivity to gentler stimulation. Warning sign number 3. You feel physical discomfort, soreness, or reduced sensitivity in your penis after masturbation sessions. Any form of physical discomfort following sexual activity indicates tissue damage that will accumulate over time and potentially become permanent if continued. The immediate correction is to stop all sexual activity until the discomfort completely resolves, then resume with significantly reduced pressure and duration. If you experience any soreness or numbness, your technique is still too aggressive and needs further modification. Warning sign number 4. Your masturbation sessions are becoming longer and more elaborate as you age. Many men don't realize that needing extended sessions or increasingly complex stimulation patterns indicates declining sensitivity and function, not improved technique or sexual sophistication. The correction involves setting strict time limits for masturbation sessions, 15 to 20 minutes maximum, and focusing on quality of sensation rather than duration or intensity. If you can't achieve satisfaction within this time frame using gentle techniques, it indicates that desensitization has already occurred and needs to be addressed. Warning sign number 5. You require visual stimulation like pornography to achieve or maintain arousal during masturbation. While this might seem normal in our culture, dependency on visual stimulation indicates that your brain has lost the ability to respond to natural physical arousal patterns. The correction involves eliminating all visual stimulation during masturbation and learning to respond purely to physical sensations. This might make arousal more difficult initially, but it's essential for restoring the kind of responsive sexuality that functions well during partnered encounters. Dr. Patricia Martinez from the Sexual Function Recovery Institute emphasizes that these warning signs often appear together, creating a pattern of declining function that most men attribute to aging when it's actually due to correctable technique problems. The correction process requires patience and consistency because you're essentially retraining your sexual response patterns. Most men notice some improvement within 2 to 4 weeks of implementing correct techniques, but full restoration of function may take several months, especially if destructive patterns have been used for years. Warning sign number 6. You experience what's called sexual anhedonia, reduced pleasure or satisfaction from sexual activity, even when you can achieve arousal and climax. This indicates that your reward pathways have been disrupted by overstimulation and need time to recover. The correction involves taking breaks from all sexual activity for 1 to 2 weeks periodically to allow your neurotransmitter systems to reset and restore their natural sensitivity to pleasurable stimulation. The key to successful correction is recognizing these warning signs early and taking immediate action to modify your techniques. The longer destructive patterns continue, the more difficult they become to reverse, and the more likely permanent damage becomes. Dr. Michael Thompson from the Sexual Health Recovery Center found that men who recognized and addressed these warning signs within the first few years of noticing them typically achieved full recovery of function, while those who ignored the signs for extended periods often experienced only partial improvement, even with optimal corrective techniques. Understanding these warning signs and their corrections can help you maintain healthy sexual function throughout your mature years, rather than accepting decline as inevitable. When performed correctly, masturbation can become one of your most powerful tools for maintaining and even improving intimate health as you age. The key lies in transforming the destructive patterns that most men use into therapeutic techniques that support circulation, maintain sensitivity, and enhance overall sexual function. The therapeutic approach to masturbation for mature men focuses on what researchers call sexual maintenance therapy, using controlled self-stimulation to preserve and optimize the physiological systems involved in healthy sexual function. This represents a complete paradigm shift from the goal-oriented, performance-focused approach that most men use. Dr. Sarah Chen from the Therapeutic Sexuality Institute has developed comprehensive guidelines for transforming masturbation into a health-promoting practice. Her research shows that men who adopt therapeutic approaches to self-stimulation maintain better sexual function, experience fewer age-related declines, and often report better partnered sexual experiences than men who avoid masturbation entirely. The circulation benefits of proper masturbation are significant when performed correctly. Gentle, sustained stimulation promotes healthy blood flow to intimate areas, helps maintain the elasticity of blood vessels, and can even stimulate the growth of new blood vessels through a process called angiogenesis. The key is using stimulation patterns that mimic natural arousal rather than forcing artificial responses. This means gradual buildup of stimulation, allowing natural circulation patterns to develop, and avoiding the intense pressure that damages blood vessels while providing the gentle stimulation that promotes vascular health. Dr. Michael Rodriguez's vascular studies showed that men who used therapeutic masturbation techniques had better blood flow measurements and healthier blood vessel function than men who either avoided masturbation entirely or used aggressive techniques. The therapeutic approach actually improves circulation over time rather than damaging it. The sensitivity maintenance aspect is equally important. Proper masturbation techniques can help preserve nerve function and prevent the age-related decline in sensitivity that many men experience. The key is providing varied, subtle stimulation that keeps nerve endings responsive without overwhelming them. This involves using different pressures, speeds, and patterns during each session to prevent your nervous system from adapting to any single stimulation pattern. The variety helps maintain neuroplasticity and prevents the desensitization that occurs when the same intense stimulation is repeated consistently. The hormonal benefits of therapeutic masturbation include supporting healthy testosterone levels and maintaining the hormonal cycles that are important for sexual health. Regular, moderate sexual activity, including appropriate masturbation, helps maintain the hormonal environment that supports sexual function, energy, and overall vitality. However, the frequency and intensity must be carefully controlled. Excessive masturbation can disrupt hormonal balance, while complete abstinence may allow hormone levels to decline. The optimal frequency for most mature men is 2 to 3 times per week, using gentle techniques that support rather than stress the system. The stress reduction benefits are significant when masturbation is performed as a mindful, relaxing activity rather than a compulsive or goal-oriented behavior. Therapeutic masturbation can reduce cortisol levels, promote relaxation, and support overall mental health when approached with the right mindset. Dr. Jennifer Thompson's research showed that men who practice mindful masturbation techniques reported better sleep quality, reduced anxiety, and improved mood compared to men who used aggressive or compulsive approaches to self-stimulation. The relationship benefits are often unexpected but significant. Men who maintain their sexual function through appropriate masturbation techniques often report better partnered sexual experiences because they maintain sensitivity, circulation, and sexual confidence that enhance their ability to connect with partners. The therapeutic approach also helps men develop better awareness of their sexual responses, which can improve communication with partners and lead to more satisfying intimate relationships. Understanding your own sexual patterns and preferences through mindful self-exploration can enhance your ability to guide and satisfy partners. The key to transformation is viewing masturbation as a form of sexual health care rather than just physical release. This mindset shift helps men approach the practice with the attention and care that therapeutic techniques require, leading to long-term benefits rather than progressive dysfunction. Most importantly, the therapeutic approach is sustainable throughout your lifetime. Unlike destructive techniques that become less effective and more damaging over time, proper masturbation techniques can continue providing benefits and supporting sexual health well into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. Understanding how to transform masturbation from a potentially destructive habit into a powerful tool for sexual health maintenance represents one of the most important shifts that mature men can make for their long-term intimate well-being. Don't let destructive masturbation habits continue stealing your sexual vitality and intimate satisfaction. The techniques I've shared with you today can help you transform a potentially harmful practice into one of your most powerful tools for maintaining sexual health throughout your mature years. Start tomorrow by implementing the gentle, mindful approaches that support rather than damage your sexual function, and prepare to discover improvements in sensitivity, circulation, and overall intimate performance that you thought were impossible to achieve. Click on the next video appearing on your screen right now to learn more natural strategies for optimizing your sexual health and reclaiming the confidence and satisfaction that every man deserves, regardless of age. Your transformation begins with changing one simple habit, and your intimate relationships will benefit for years to come. I'll see you there.